renowned personalities such as Sridhar sir. He was maths from Madras University. Then he is from University of Delhi. And he is a qualified chartered accountant as well as cost accountant also. And he is instrumental in making changes in many sections. And recent example is the case in Supreme Court of India. The judgment was delivered in September 2021. That is Union of India versus VKC Pustek India Private Limited. And the judgment was concluded with the remark that decision, Supreme Court decision also taken decision to let the GST Council address the issue of imbalance in the fiscal formula and specifically mentioned that in para 101 of the judgment Supreme Court has mentioned that the remarks given in the anomalies pointed out by the RCC, we strongly urge the GST Council to reconsider the formula and take a policy decision regarding the same. And his argument is reproduced in para number 105 to 116. And it's a very precise argument and forceful argument. So I request our joint commissioner, Freddy Saigram sir, to welcome him by giving him the speech.
Okay. No, yes, sir. No, sir. Definitely. Yes, sir. Okay. That all of you, sir. This is my, I'm with my colleague Sahil. It's my pleasure and privilege. Before I begin the session, I want to narrate two incidents. Once we had Chief Justice K.K. Usha was the Chief Justice of Kerala High Court, and after retirement, she was the President of Customs Tribunal. And after retirement, there was a farewell function. I was asked to speak a few words about it. When I was speaking, then Chief Justice Usha said, Sridharan, you are very poor in this public speaking, he said. Some lawyer said, sir, he is not getting paid for it, therefore he is a very poor speaker. In the court, he argues very well, he said. Another lawyer friend was pulling my leg. You know, football player Messi, no, Lionel Messi is a very famous player. He plays beautifully for Barcelona and doesn't play well for Argentina, his national team. And they say reason is he is not paid cricket. I am not a good public speaker, therefore I will request you to pardon me for that. And all these slides have been prepared by my young colleague Sahil. Don't go by his age. He knows the subject as well as I am. The brilliant chartered accountant, rank holder in CAA inter and final, is my colleague. He comes to the tribunal more frequently than me. So today's topic generally is some background and concept behind this central sales tax and this local sales tax. Why they came about, what's the historical background. And I believe whether it is income tax or sales tax or service tax, if you know the background, legislative background, then matter is very easy to. If you start in the middle only, confusion starts. So some of them, what we are going to discuss may be theoretical, may not happen on every day, okay, but will give us a complete picture. And for a lawyer, once the background is clear, then 99% of the things are solved. Our doubt is the one which worries us, whether I'm making a mistake, whether I'm right or wrong. No, is it not so, sir? So we'll go to the background and then. Then we all know. Yeah. Okay. Sir, we all know agricultural income tax department doesn't charge income tax. Is it not so, sir? So our income tax officer, Naikar Bhavan, whenever we say agricultural income, he says go, no problem. But there is something called a state agricultural income tax. Kerala agricultural income tax act is there. Karnataka agricultural income tax is there. Maharashtra agricultural. Now most of them are exempted. Why I am giving you this example? Agricultural income, Parliament cannot levy income tax. It does not levy income tax. Constitution says Parliament can levy income tax any income other than agricultural income. Constitution also says state cannot levy income tax on any income other than agricultural income. So, with agricultural income, state can levy income tax. Parliament cannot levy income tax. However, Constitution says what is agricultural income, who will decide? Kindly note this point. What is agricultural, who will decide? Whether state will decide or Parliament will decide. Constitution says whatever Parliament defines as agricultural income in Income Tax Act 1961, that will be the agricultural income on which state government can levy tax. I repeat, Constitution 366(1), come here, sorry. 366(1) says Parliament will define what is agricultural income. Once the Parliament defines agricultural income, then the state can levy income tax on it. Why I give this example? Agricultural income has nothing to do with sales tax. It has nothing to do with sales tax. I gave this example to say power of the Parliament to define what is agricultural income does not automatically mean they have power to levy tax on it. They define it so that when the state government levy tax, they can levy tax on these incomes. So power to define particular tax in the Constitution does not mean that body has power to levy tax also on this. Keep this in mind when we go to our sales tax. Okay, this is what this is. Taxes on income as an agricultural income, entry 82 of list 1 of the 7th schedule of the Constitution. As you know, 7th schedule of the Constitution, list 1 says Parliament can make laws for these. List 2 of the 7th schedule, state legislature can make lists for all these things. Then you have a concurrent list. So entry 82 says you can levy tax on income other than agricultural income. If you look at state list, entry 46 says tax on agricultural income, state legislature will levy. Then tax on agriculture levy will only be a state legislature, not by Parliament. Article 366(1) of the Constitution says what is agricultural income? Means agricultural income as defined for the purpose of enactment related to Indian income tax. So income tax is 2(1)(a). Agricultural income means income from rent, etc., etc. That's the first definition. While 2(1) income tax defines agricultural income, section 10(1) provides for exemption. Definition is not to tax agricultural income, but define the scope of state legislature to impose tax on state. This is very common in Constitution. And this is directly relevant when you go to the next slide. Now, sir, one thing which used to trouble me, why in sales tax, every time the assessing officer passes order, he passes 2 orders. One under the MAT Act or Bombay Sales Tax Act, and simultaneously passes an order on CST Act also. So same assessee, he passes 2 assessment orders. One under the Central Sales Tax Act, one under the MAT Act. All officers all over the country, you take a Bengal Sales Tax officer, he will pass an order, one for the Bengal Sales Tax Act and one under the Central Sales Tax. Why? What does it tax under the Central Sales Tax Act? What does it tax under the State Tax Act? Mr. Ramani sir is going to explain in another session tomorrow day after details of individual provisions of section 3, 4, 5, 6 of the Central Sales Tax Act. We'll be dealing with it in detail. I am only giving you the background. Why this section, why the Central Sales Tax Act is needed, why the State Act is required. That's what we will do. And we will also, out of academic interest, say how the same concept is relevant. What was relevant in 1950, now in 2020, when GST is enacted also. So we will link it up that way. Sir, prior to 1950, I am talking about prior to 1950. We have Government of India Act 1935. Constitution came in 1950. Government of India 1935. Government of India Act is same, similar to this. In fact, the joke Britishers used to tell is, you want freedom, you want independence from us, okay. Please tell me one constitution which you can draft yourself. Britishers were challenged to us. Please come up with a draft of the constitution. And the joke was, the people copied 1935 Government of India Act, and Government of India Act was made by Britishers. So, or whatever changes were made between Government of India 1935 and Constitution 1950, usi mein problem hai, interpretation, Article 14, 15, 16, whatever new additions is made between 1935 and 50 Act only became a matter of dispute. Whatever is part of 1935 Act, which is reproduced in 1950 Act, there is no too much difference. Prior to 1950, entry 48 of list 2 of the 7th schedule says state government, state legislature can levy tax on sale of goods. So sales tax is a state subject always. Parliament cannot. Center cannot levy sales tax at all prior to 1950. No entry in list 1 for levying tax on goods. Next line is important, sir. There was no restriction on the power of the state government to levy sales tax prior to 1950. Constitution simply says Bombay province can levy tax on sale in Bombay. Similarly, Madras province, Madras presidency can levy tax on sale in Madras presidency. और कुछ नहीं बोला. Sales tax laws will levy a tax on sale within the state. It will say, Bombay Act will say, all dealers have to pay sales tax on all sale within Bombay. Madras will say, all dealers have to pay sales tax for sale within Madras. Bengal will say, you have to pay tax on all sales within Bengal. No problem. But what is the meaning of sale within Madras, sale within Bombay, sale within Bengal? That was the problem. Last 2 lines. Each sales tax law has its own definition of sale within the state. Bombay law will say it is a sale within the state if the seller is in Bombay. Bengal law will say sale is in Bengal if the purchase is in Bengal. Madras Act will say sale is in Madras if the payment is made in Madras. Punjab will say sale is in Punjab if the delivery is in Punjab. So each state had its own definition. All states can tax sale within the state. But states are given power to define what is sale within the state. Each state has its own definition. I repeat, Maharashtra used to say sale within Maharashtra, the seller is with me. Bengal used to say it's a sale within Bengal if purchaser is in Bengal. Madras will say sale is in Madras if payment is in Madras. Punjab will say sale is in Punjab if it is goods are delivered in Punjab. Because each legislature is supreme. In its field it is supreme. State legislature is not subordinate to central legislature. In the field given to state legislature, it is supreme. It is not a delegate. It is not like Parliament delegates rule making power to central government. State legislature delegates rule making power to state government. No. It is not delegation by the central legislature to the state legislature. Both of them derive their power directly from the constitution. And within their sphere, their field is unlimited. So each state needs to define sale within that state. Last line, sir. A transaction of sale having some nexus with the state was defined as sale within the state. Is it clear, sir? The slide is visible clearly. अब बड़ा करना है इसको. Sir? Thank you, sir. Next, go to the next slide. Sir, if you go to a mall and buy goods in the mall, toothpaste, anything, seller is in the mall, purchase is in the mall, delivery is taking place, payment is taking place, goods are in the mall, everything takes place in the state. No problem. So Maharashtra can tax it. But complexity arises when different elements are still situated in different states. If one pit is here in Maharashtra, another pit is in Gujarat, then Gujarat can tax it, Maharashtra can tax it, it's a problem. We used to joke, water bottle you buy in a shop is liable to sales tax. This is not so, President, sir. Water bottle you buy in a shop, it is liable to sales tax. So you go to railway station, Bombay Central Station platform, you buy the water bottle, you are liable to pay sales tax. But if the water bottle is sold in the moving train, which train will pay the tax? Bombay, Delhi, Rajdhani is there. Okay. The water bottle is being sold, it is sale, no problem, taxable. But sale is in the moving train. Where will you pay the tax? A big problem. Flight from Delhi to Bombay, food is served in the air. If food is liable to sales tax, where will you pay the tax? The reason is, if everything relating to take place in one state, then no problem. If more than one state is involved, there is a problem. This is exactly the problem in hijacking. If an aircraft is hijacked, or if one passenger misbehaves with the pilot during the flight, you should be tried in Bombay police station, Delhi police station. It's a big problem because all of us assumed that a particular thing will take place in a fixed location. When it's spread over two locations, there is a problem. It's the same problem in income tax. If foreign company sells goods in India, whether it should pay income tax to England, English government, or Indian government, it's no difference. Similarly, if the transaction of sale involves more than one state, each state I will levy tax. Kindly note, ये कोई नहीं बोलता आपका बॉम्बे आप ही टैक्स करो और मद्रास जैसे से यू अलोन टैक्स इट. बॉम्बे will say seller मेरे हाथ में I will tax it. Bengal will say purchase is मेरे हाथ I will tax it. Madras will say payment is made here I will tax it. Punjab will say goods are delivered in Punjab I will tax it. So one single sale, अब actually होता था sir, it's not a joke. Actually used to happen prior to 1950. I am not exaggerating. One single sale, 5 people used to levy tax, 7 people used to levy tax. That was a big problem. Go to the next slide. Sir, this is what I told you. Seller is in Maharashtra, buyer is in Uttar Pradesh, agreement is in Madhya Pradesh, goods are in Gujarat, payment is in Madras. Some of the states are not there, but just hypothetically. Suppose, last line is important, sir. Suppose sales tax law of each state defines sale within the state as seller is within the state. This is part of the definition. Sale in Maharashtra means seller is in Maharashtra, or buyer is in Maharashtra, or goods are delivered in Maharashtra, or payment is made in. That is, one element of sale, I will put it this way, one element of sale, one aspect of sale was picked up by the legislature for taxation. They never said, if all elements of sale take place in my state, then alone I will tax it. They were never saying that. They say, any element of sale takes place in the state, I will tax it. I don't know whether I'm clear, sir. This is what used to happen. It happens, same, sir, you pickpocket takes place in Borivali, Kandivali station, moving train. Whether Borivali police station to try him or Kandivali police station to try him is a big problem. Then section will say he can be tried in any one of them. If the section is there, no problem. If the section is silent, there's a difficulty. Therefore, in all hijacking and other passenger misbehavior during the flight, law will say you will be tried in the place where you deplane. So you board the plane in Bombay, you get down in Delhi, Delhi's ASF will catch hold of you. Because law will say that for mid-air breaches, the relevant police station will be this. You are all civil judges, you will know much better than me. But that is what provided in the law. Once upon a time, a Star TV used to program, all broadcasts used to be from Hong Kong. Okay. So, when government wanted to control him, Hong Kong Star said, I am from Hong Kong. You cannot touch me. So Star fellow came to me. I said, ठीक है, आप यूएसए में क्या करती हो? तो उधर तो बात अलग है सर. क्यों? यूएसए वाला बोला आप नहीं लगाएंगे. आपको केबल ऑपरेटर जो है वो डाउनलोड द सिग्नल, I will catch hold of him. What they call downlinking. So India made the law saying if signals broadcast from outside India are downloaded in India, the fellow who downloads, I will license him, register him, catch hold of him. Ultimately, the Star is going to make money from India. He has to have somebody in India. If you say, I cannot catch you, no problem, I'll catch you this way. That's what the law is. If the law says so, no problem. So, one single say can be taxed by each of the 5 states. These are a disaster to the consumer. And not only this thing, dealers have to pay tax in 5 different states, big problem. Okay, next. So far I'm clear, sir. I'm not too complicated, no, sir. Take this example, it actually happened. Suppose a seller in London sells the goods buyer in Bombay, import from London, sale is in London, purchaser is in Bombay. Bombay Sales Tax Act levied purchase tax on importers prior to 1950. Because purchaser is here, seller may be abroad, Bombay levied sales tax on that. Similarly, you are exporting from Bombay to London. You export from here. Because the property passed here, seller is here, Bombay used to levy sales tax on exports. So imports into Bombay, Bombay levied sales tax in the form of purchase tax from the purchaser. Sales tax, if you collect it from the seller, you call it sales tax. You collect it from the purchaser, you collect it is called purchase tax. I don't know, that's nothing beyond that nomenclature. I'm sure you know this joke. I've said this many times. Mr. Mulayam Singh in UP in 97 also gave an election speech. If I become the chief minister, I will abolish sales tax in UP. He announced, I will abolish sales tax. If sales tax abolished, government will have 1 rupee भी नहीं होगा. What did he do? UP sales tax in 1948, name was changed, UP Trade Tax Act 1948. कुछ नहीं किया. Short title name was changed. UP Sales Tax was changed to UP Trade Tax Act. Similarly, we will not levy tax on farmers. Our minister announced. So sugar cane is sold with the farmer to the sugar factory. Minister says, I will not levy sales tax on the farmer. So the revenue secretary will say, sir, from sugar cane I get 100 crores, sir, how will I do? Minister will say, I have told, I will not levy tax on farmer. The revenue secretary will say, okay, sir, you will not levy tax on the farmer. I will levy purchase tax on the sugar mill. That is called purchase tax, nothing else. Tax is a transaction of sale. Government can collect from the seller or purchaser. For convenience, when you collect from the seller, you call it sales tax. When you collect from the purchaser, you call it purchase tax. And in GST, we call it reverse charge. Forward charge, when the tax is paid to the supplier, we call it forward charge. When the recipient is paying tax, it is called reverse charge, nothing else. And the same thing, TDS, income is the employee. The employee has to pay tax. For convenience, Parliament says, I will collect the tax from the employer. And if the employer fails to collect the tax, I will go after the employer. Employer cannot say, मेरा तनख्वाह नहीं था, salary employee का था, उसी के income tax उसके पास जाइए आप. Parliament बोलते हैं, I told you to collect before handing over the salary to the employee. If you fail, I will catch hold of you, employer. Not because it is your income, but I want you to debt, you fail to debt, I will collect from you. So that's it. So same, nothing but similarly, when the London exporter sells to purchaser in Bombay, Bombay used to sales tax and call it purchase tax on the importer because importer उसका हाथ में था, उसको पकड़ लेते थे. So similarly, when the exporter from Bombay sells to London buyer, Bombay used to levy sales tax. That the goods are going outside the country. It's not the they are concerned with the revenue. Therefore, that is what the law was. So prior to 1950, they within the within the state, everything takes place in the state, no problem. Because there are no other state claiming money. It's not as if Maharashtra is claiming and Bombay, Bengal is also claiming, Madras is claiming, no. But once more than one state is involved, there's a problem. More than one state used to levy tax. And import and export are also liable to tax. Okay, sir. This was the chaotic situation prior to 1950. Can I proceed further? Any questions so far, sir? Then came the Constitution. In 1950, Article 286 was there. It broadly said, no state can levy tax on sale outside the state. I repeat, Article 286 said, no state legislature can levy tax on sale outside the state. Next, no state legislature can levy tax on import or export. Second, 3, no state can levy tax on interstate sale. So in 1950, Constitution on one hand said sales tax is state subject. Sales tax not a central subject. It continues to be a state subject. But in that 286 said no state legislature can make a sales tax law to tax a sale outside the state. That's the first restriction. Second, no sales tax law can levy tax on sale because of import or export. Third, no sales tax law shall levy tax on interstate sale. So sale from Bombay to Gujarat, no state can levy tax on it. This was the Constitution as enacted in 1950. There are some problem in this article. It was changed in 1956, and from 56 till now, it has remained in the same form. Okay. Sir, I want to ask you this question. There is a seller in Maharashtra selling it to a buyer in London, and the contract says property will pass in Bombay. Sale is complete in Bombay. Delivery will be in London, no problem. Payment is also in Bombay, bank is there. Okay. So I repeat, seller in Bombay, purchase in London, sale is completed in Bombay, delivery will be in London, property passes in Bombay. Is it a sale within Bombay, sir, within Maharashtra? Can I ask this question to any one of your honorable judges? Facts are, seller is in Bombay, purchase in London, and the contract specifically says property will pass in Bombay, even before delivery. Sale of goods act, property will pass when parties agree. So parties contract that property will pass in Bombay. Can I ask a question, sir? Is it a sale within Bombay? Yes, sir. It is. Okay. It's a sale within Bombay. Whether Maharashtra can tax it is a different question. Don't jump to that. You're all trained at taxes, immediately you're going to that. My train is going a little slow. Okay. We'll go to that later. The sale in Bombay. Constitution said Maharashtra cannot tax a sale outside the state. Kindly note this very important point. Constitution said Maharashtra cannot tax a sale outside the state. But in the example we just now considered, sale within Bombay, can Maharashtra tax it therefore? Yes. Because a property pass in Maharashtra. Therefore, first restriction in 286 is sale is outside Maharashtra. Maharashtra cannot tax it. Maharashtra also bolte, sir, my sale is in Maharashtra, I satisfy this. Then the party argues, no problem, sir, sale is in Maharashtra, sale is not outside Maharashtra. You can tax under this. But next clause says in the Constitution, if the sale in the course of export, you cannot touch me. Kindly note this very important point. Sale in the course of export, another restriction in the Constitution says Maharashtra cannot tax it. There was a problem in the Supreme Court. United Motors judgment took one view. Bengal immunity later on clarified it. We need not go into the details of it. Ultimately, Supreme Court said, in this example, no doubt sale is within Maharashtra. Sale is not outside Maharashtra. But Maharashtra cannot jump with that. He has to get over another hurdle, namely, it should not be in the course of export. The Supreme Court therefore said, three different restrictions are on your power to tax sale. If the sale outside Maharashtra, you are gone. You cannot tax that sale. If the sale is in the course of import or in the course of export, then also you cannot tax it. If it is interstate, also you cannot tax it. One particular transaction may hit by all the three hurdles. Some transaction may hit by two hurdles. Some transaction may hit by only one hurdle. The government cannot say, sir, first hurdle is not against me, namely the sale within Maharashtra. It is not sale outside Maharashtra. Therefore, I can tax it. Or the state of Maharashtra to tax it, it has to successfully overcome all the three hurdles, 1, 2, and 3. If it fails in any one of them, he will not, the party need not pay tax. So, old Article 286, in this example, property passed in Maharashtra is sale in Maharashtra. Movement of goods is outside territory, it's a sale in the course of export. Therefore, Maharashtra cannot levy tax because of restriction 286 1B. 286 1B says sale in the course of export cannot be taxed. One hurdle you overcome, you fail the second hurdle, then also you cannot levy tax. This is the most important point I wanted to probably use. In the last half an hour, Bhashan is only for this. It is not enough if one restriction on the state's power is overcome. It has to overcome, the state has to overcome all the three restrictions. That was the law in between 1950 to 1956. So this is only to give an example that there is no contradiction. There is no conflict between sale being within Maharashtra and sale being in the course of export. Both can take place simultaneously in one transaction. If property passes in Maharashtra, it is sale within Maharashtra. If it is in the course of export, sale in the course of export. You can't say if it is sale in the course of export, it cannot be sale in Maharashtra. It can be, may not be. Suppose in this very transaction, property passes to the buyer in London in delivery as per the contract. Then sale is not in Maharashtra. So, most important point is all the three hurdles state has to overcome before it can levy tax. It cannot say one hurdle is inapplicable to me. In the sense, sale is not outside Maharashtra. Once sale is not outside Maharashtra, I can tax it. No. This is what the dispute between the first, what is Bengal immunity. Same example, seller in London, sells to buyer in Bombay. Import. Property passes and delivery in Bombay. It is the sale within Maharashtra. But it also sale in the course of import, and therefore Maharashtra cannot tax it. This is the second example. So this is between 1950 to 56. This used to happen. And this led to our central sales tax, which we'll tell you in a minute. I said, sir, there are three hurdles placed in 1950 on the state government. One, the sale outside your state cannot tax it. Second hurdle, the sale in the course of import or export, state cannot tax it. Third hurdle is, if the sale is interstate, then also state cannot tax it. So seller in Maharashtra selling to buyer in Delhi, interstate, then also Maharashtra cannot tax it. Okay, sir. These are three hurdles. What used to happen? You see this. Our businessmen are very clever. He will sell. Seller is in Fort, buyer is in Fountain. Bombay mein na dono Fort or Fountain. High Court ke paas mein hai. Seller is in Fort, buyer is in Fountain. The seller will sell to buyer in Delhi. The buyer in Delhi will sell to the Fountain purchaser. This is of X in Bombay selling to Y in Bombay. First floor of this Mazgaon Docks building, selling to fifth floor of this. Instead, he will sell to Delhi and Delhi will resell to this. Here from Bombay to Delhi, interstate sale, Maharashtra cannot tax it. Delhi to Bombay back, is interstate sale from Delhi, Delhi cannot tax it. So purely local sale, parties used to artificially shows two interstate sales. One interstate sale and one interstate purchase. And local, even pure local sales were escaping tax. Import export to chhod do. Outside the, because constitution says interstate sale, no state can tax it. Parties manipulated a purely local sale also as interstate sale. Ultimately, what state was left with? Aloo sabji aap khareedte from the Televada. Seller is there, you are the only that they will get, or the biscuit packet you will get this thing. But all the bulk of goods, which seller is from one state to another, they were escaping tax, and purely local sales but artificially converted to two interstate sales, and both of them were escaping tax. This was a disaster. Therefore, Constitution maker said, sir, in 1950, we didn't want export and import to be taxed. We didn't want Maharashtra to levy tax on a Bengal fellow. That is okay. We didn't want interstate to be taxed. But parties took the last exemption to evade tax on local sales also by converting a pure local sale into interstate sales. Therefore, in 1956, within 6 years of 1950, some changes were made in Article 286. And that led to our Central Sales Tax Act. I'll explain that in a minute. So far clear, sir? The background before, I'm sorry, many of the honorable technical members will know the subject much better than me. Just for the sake of completeness, I'm giving this background. And if I made any error, I'll request all of you to correct me. I have no problem because law is an ocean. Anybody can learn from anybody. Okay, there's a chance of error. To the extent possible, may not be an error, but I welcome any observations from you also. So in 1956, Constitutional amended as far as 286 is concerned. It now said entry 54 of list 2 of the 7th schedule, which is the state list, under the state can make laws for so many things. Tax on sale or purchase of goods subject to entry 92A of list 1. So the Constitution said, Mr. State Legislature, you can tax as any sale or purchase, but your power to levy tax on sale or purchase is subject to entry 92A of the Union list, list 1 of the 7th schedule, Parliament. 92A was introduced the first time. A itself indicates it was not there in 1950. 92A was introduced in 1956. And it says, Parliament will levy tax on sale or purchase of goods interstate trade. So, Constitution said, prior to 1956, no state shall levy tax on interstate sale. In 1956, a change was made to say, Parliament will levy tax on interstate sale. So pre-1956, interstate sale was completely free from tax. Post-1956, interstate sale were not liable to tax at the hands of the state legislature. It will be levied by the central legislature. That's what 92A is. I'm clear, sir? Huh? So far clear? It should not be all clear, as they say in the computer. Now, sir, see this. This is the text of the article. 286(1) remains the same. No law of a state shall levy a tax on sale outside the state. 286(1)(a). 1B says in the course of import or export. 286(2) is important. Parliament will define what is sale outside the state. Parliament will define what is the course of import or export. So 286(2) is new. So not in 1950. 286(1) remained the same between 1950 and 1956. The change was who will define whether it is outside the state. Who will define whether it is import or export? Parliament will define. I told you this at the beginning, agriculture income. Agriculture income tax is levied by state legislature. But what is agriculture income? Who will define? Constitution, Parliament will define. Similarly, sir, Article 286(2) says Parliament will define what is outside. Parliament will define what is import and export. This is a question I always used to ask. Whenever these slides are similar to what I presented before the High Court judges in Bhopal. As you know, sir, National Judicial Academy is in Bhopal. I've gone there about 8-10 times to the same slides I discussed with them also. Now the question I'm going to ask is, no state can levy tax on sale outside the state. No state can levy tax on import or export. Parliament will define under 286(2) what is inside, outside, what is import or export. Who will levy tax? on sale in the course of import? Sale, who will levy sales tax on sale in the course of import or export? Can any of your lordships answer this query? Question is clear? Parliament 286(1) says no state can make a law levying tax on outside the state sale. No state law can make provision for taxing import or export. 286(2) says Parliament will define what is outside the state. Parliament define what is import, what is sale in the course of export. Question to any one of you can answer it. If you want to levy sales tax on import or export, can state do it, sir? No. Can Parliament do it? Who says Parliament can do it? You are saying, sir. Raise your hand. Why do you say so, sir? Go back to 92A. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Very good. Very good. Very good. And entry 42 of the list one, Parliament has domain over. But having domain over foreign affairs is different from taxing that foreign affairs. They have power to make import control restriction, export restriction. But levy tax on is different. And look at 90A. Parliament can levy sales tax on sale in the course of import or interstate sale. Parliament under 90A can tax in interstate sale. So seller in Maharashtra selling to buyer in Gujarat, Parliament can levy. Seller in Maharashtra selling to London buyer is not interstate. Interstate between two states, Maharashtra and Gujarat. So 92A, Parliament has power to levy sales tax on sale within the country, but it's between two different states. But if it is between India and another country, whether Maharashtra to London or Madras to New York or vice versa, Parliament also doesn't have power. So the most important point I want to tell you is under 286(2), Parliament has power to define what is the sale inside the state, what is the sale outside the state. Under 286(2), Parliament has power to define what is the course of import, but what is the course of export. Doesn't mean Parliament can levy tax on that. Power of the Parliament to levy tax on that will be flowing from 92A. 92A says Parliament can levy sales tax on interstate sales. So therefore, that's the reason why I give the agricultural income example. Agricultural income example I gave because Parliament can define what is agricultural income. After that, state can levy tax. Similarly, Parliament will define agricultural income, then Parliament cannot levy tax on it. Power to define is different from power to tax. This is the most important point I want to explain, sir. It's simple, but from first look. Therefore, to ask this question, on sale outside the state, state cannot levy tax. Central also cannot levy tax. If it is the course of import or export, state cannot levy tax because 286(1) bars it. Even Parliament cannot because Parliament's limited role is under 92A if the sale is within two states, within the country. This is what I want to explain. This is, yes, sir. I mean, yes, sir. One more amendment, sir. 286(2) says Parliament will define what is outside, Parliament will define what is import and export. Interstate sale, Parliament can levy tax. But how will they define? 269(3) says Parliament will define what is interstate sale. So, power of the Parliament to define inside sale, power of the Parliament to define import and export, close to 286(2). Power of the Parliament define what is interstate sale is 269(3). After defining what is interstate sale, Parliament will have power to levy tax on it under 92A. That's the scheme. That's all, sir. Nothing more than that. Only two things you have to know. In the Constitution, 286. 286(1), no state can tax outside the state. No state can tax import or export. 286(2), Parliament define what is outside, Parliament define what is import or export. And power of the Parliament define is not equal to Parliament levying tax on them. Next, in 1993A, Parliament has power to levy tax in interstate sale. Interstate sale means within the country between two different states. Parliament has power under 1992A of this one. power of the parliament to define interstate sale is 269(3). That's all, sir. And now this is from the constitution. It looks very big. Kuch nahi hai, sir. Many of my juniors are the same difficulty. I also had the difficulty. When we beginning as a student, initially we think constitution means something very big, complicated, etc. If you think constitution is like Sale of Goods Act, you will interpret it as conveniently and lucidly. It's only in the mind. It's only in the mind. We think constitution is nothing. It's all written in the same English language or Hindi or whatever it is. Okay. Just shake that hesitation and you'll find it easy. Then there comes some other small portions of it. You can say, Sridharan, you are troubling me for last 1 hour. Parliament will make law on interstate sale. But CST is collected by Maharashtra government, Gujarat government. What is this joke? You troubled me for 1 hour, the Parliament will levy tax. 261 says, Parliament will make law. But whatever central tax is collected will go to the state. In other words, the money doesn't go to the central government. Money goes to Maharashtra government, the seller is in Maharashtra, interstate sales. Seller in Maharashtra, dispatching goods from Maharashtra to Gujarat, central sales is collected by Maharashtra officer, and that money will go to Maharashtra government. Similarly, seller in say, Chhattisgarh, selling to a buyer in Delhi, central sales tax will be levied in Chhattisgarh. Under Central Sales Tax Act, money will be collected and handed over to Chhattisgarh government. In other words, the central sales tax is only a method adopted to the parliament to say, since more than one state is involved, I will not permit the state to make the law. I will make the law. But the law is made for the benefit of the state, not for the benefit of the center. So central sales tax, though in the central act, is made by the parliament, tax will be interstate sales, but constitution says, Mr. Central Government, sales tax is state subject. Money belongs to state governments only. But there's a technical problem. If more than one state is involved, we will not want both the states to latch on to the same dealer. We will act as an umpire. We will make the law. And in the law, we will say, this money will go to this state only and not the second state. And after that, we will retire from the scheme. In other words, center has a passive role in making the law. After that, it withdraws the scene. Thereafter, it will all come before you. That's what the background is. So I am even more confused than usual. You can tell me also. Sir, now these sections will be explained in detail in another session tomorrow or day after, but we can very broadly know. Section 3 defines what is interstate sale. Section 3 of the Central Sales Tax Act defines what is interstate sale and will define, broadly speaking, if goods move from one state to another, it is interstate sale. It's a matter which will be explained to you in detail. It's a topic in itself. We used to joke in the bar. These three sections 3, 4, and 5 have even costumed the generational lawyers for the last 70 years. Only 3 sections. 3, 4, and 5 से हम लोग बहुत आगे कुछ नहीं. We need not have read hundreds of sections like your CPC or evidence that वगैरह नहीं. 3 ही है. 3, 4, and 5 or 2 line section. After 70 years it has been giving us work, it will continue to give us work. Section 3 broadly says interstate sale means if goods move from one state to another pursuant to the contract. We will see some examples in a minute. That is what section 3 is. And if you ask, please tell me what is the link between the Constitution and section 3? 269(3). We saw 269(3). Parliament may by law define what is interstate sale. Pursuant to that, section 3 of Central Sales Tax is made. Again, section 3 is not the section which the tax is levied. It only defines what is interstate sale. Section 4 of the Central Sales Tax Act defines what to say inside the state and outside the state. Section 4. So 3 is what is interstate sale. 4 is what is inside the state and outside the state. And 5 is what is the course of import. 5.1 is what is the course of export. And 5.2 what is sale in the course of import. So you will have hundreds of appeals coming under 5.2. When A in London sells to B in Bombay, and B in Bombay sells to C in Bombay, when the goods are on high seas, then the sale by B to C is also in the course of import. These are the problems. The number of practical issues will arise. That's the reason why I gave this background. Constitution says, and Central Sales Act says, Section 5 will say, sale in the course of, 5(2) is sale in the course of import is defined. 5(1) sale in the course of export. Export with the problem nahi rehta, import with both rehta. It should come. This is the background. Once the party proves it is a sale in the course of import, after 5(2), then we saw state government cannot levy tax. So whenever the MBAT officer assesses a party to tax on import transaction, party will say, sir, I will sell in the course of import. You will ask him show. He will show 5(2). Then he'll ask, what happens in the course of import? What happens in the course of import? Then he has to say, sir, under Article 286, state cannot levy tax. Under Section 74 also, no? MBAT says 86. Section 8 of MBAT Act repeats Article 286. Section 8 of the MBAT Act says, my MBAT Act will not levy tax. MBAT book has that. MBAT will say, my act will not levy tax on sale in the course of import or export or outside the sale. The Section 8, which is what we call it, it apes, it repeats 286. That's what this will say. This is broadly the. Section 6 of the Central Sales Tax Act says, this is a charging section. Section 6 of Central Sales Tax Act says, there will be levy a sales tax on all interstate sales. 3, 4, and 5 are only definitions. They don't levy tax. Tax is levied by Section 6. Section 6 says, on interstate sales, there should levy a sales tax called Central Sales Tax. That will be Section 6. And Section 9(1) will say, Section 9(1) will say, the tax will be paid to the dispatching state. 9(1) will say, tax is paid to the dispatching state. Section 8 of the MBAT Act says, virtually repeats Article 286. Says nothing in the MBAT Act will levy tax on outside sale, import, export. So to make the act self-contained, you don't want to know the Constitution, no problem. You simply look at MBAT Act, Section 8(1). So when we come and argue before a lordship saying that sir is the sale in the course of export, you can ask, what happens if the sale in the course of export? We had a judge, Justice Yuval Bhatt from Kerala High Court, who was the chief of the president of the CSTAT tribunal. He had no knowledge of customs, excise, service tax, etc. But he had supreme confidence and common sense. Whatever I argue, sir, this is not manufactured. Or what happens if it is not manufactured? Why are you boring me? I say if there is no manufacturer, no excise duty is payable. Why do you say so? I will close the section. There should be tax on manufacturer. Okay. You will ask, why are you arguing this import? I will say there is import. Then what happens? Section 8 of the MBAT Act says, I will not be liable to tax. So every argument of the lawyer has to have a purpose. You should ask him. 9(1) of the Central Sales Tax Act says the tax levied under the Central Sales Tax Act will be levied and collected to the dispatching state. That's how Maharashtra levies tax on sale from Maharashtra to Gujarat. When I sell from Maharashtra to Gujarat and move the goods from Maharashtra to Gujarat, legally speaking, I will be paid tax under Central Sales Tax Act, not under the Maharashtra Value Added Tax. But for practical purposes, money will go to state of Maharashtra because of 9(1). And there is a reason also. The Taxation Inquiry Committee report says, yes, we want taxes not to be evaded for interstate sales. We also do not want dealers to suffer. Dealers will already be registered with Maharashtra government for local sale. We'll ask them to take registration to the Central Sales Tax Act for paying Central Sales Tax to Maharashtra government. So Maharashtra government will be. So if the company is half full or half empty, it depends on where you look at it. You may say interstate sale, Gujarat should get the money or Maharashtra should get money. One of the states should get the money. Parliament decided we'll allow this money to dispatching state. Why? Because easy for the dispatching state for it to be registered in the same state. He is making a local sale in Maharashtra, he is registered under the MVAT Act. He is making interstate sale in Maharashtra, he is registered under the Central Sales Tax. He will pay tax to Maharashtra government and retain it. Therefore, every time an assessing officer assesses to a dealer to tax, he makes one assessment for local sale and he makes one assessment for interstate sale. Interstate sale assessed in the Central Sales Tax Act. Money will be collected and go to Maharashtra government, doesn't go to center. And he will also say in the assessment order, this much is import, I give relief. This much is export, I give relief. He will say in local assessment, total turnover, exempted as import, exempted as export, exempted as interstate sale. He will deduct all this in MVAT Act assessment. Then when he goes to CST assessment, he will say interstate sale is this much. He will not say import is this much, export is this. That he will ignore because import export, he does a tax under MVAT Act or CST Act. That's how the background is. Last 2-3 slides only, sir. To summarize, Central Sales Tax Act is an act to define what is interstate sale. An act to define what is inside outside. That is section 3. Section 4. 5 is sale in the course import export. And last is levy tax in interstate sale. Section 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. And last is provide the state with section 9. Dispatch the state will collect money interstate sale and keep it with it. Last line is important. Central Sales Tax Act does not provide for levy of sales tax even by Parliament on import sale or export sale or outside the state sale. Sir, okay. Next. Yes. Sir, these are the last 2 slides. I'll take 2-3 minutes more only. Sorry for having. Sir, will you read it? Sir, this is whatever we have discussed so far. That's a hypothetical example. Okay. Then we'll solve an answer by this. Yes.
Of an identified car by salary CSTS is subject to section 3 of the CSTS. Therefore, Maharashtra cannot really localize CSTS. CSTS will be assessed, collected, and retained by the state of Maharashtra. 4. Suppose in the example property passes in Gujarat upon delivery. Local sale in Gujarat because property passes in Gujarat. But still, since the transaction is interstate sale, because there is a movement of goods from state of Maharashtra to state of Gujarat, state of Gujarat cannot levy tax because it's an interstate sale and the dispatching state alone can levy tax.
Sir, kindly note this. This is the essence of the last 1.5 hours of warning you, summarized in this. In this example, seller in Maharashtra sells the car to buyer in Gujarat. Property passes in Bombay. Agreement says delivered car, but purchaser says move the goods from Bombay to Gujarat. That will be explained to you tomorrow, day after. It will be an interstate sale because a sale in Bombay and goods also move from Bombay to Gujarat. It will be interstate sale. If the officer, sales tax officer, levies tax on this under the local VAT Act, party will be very happy. He will come to you and say, sir, it is no doubt a sale in Maharashtra, but simultaneously interstate sale. Once it's an interstate sale, Maharashtra officer cannot levy tax on me under the local sales tax act. If that person being clever and pass the same order as CST Act, then mera move band. If by mistake taxes the interstate sale under the local act, then the assessment will be invalid. But if it is the same tax under CST Act and the money goes to Maharashtra government, then I will be helpless. So as far as Maharashtra is concerned, as the dispatching state is concerned, though it is a local sale in Maharashtra, it is simultaneously interstate sale also. Section 3 will prevail over Section 4 and therefore Maharashtra cannot levy tax under the local act. Maharashtra can levy tax under the CST Act, under Section 6 of Central Sales Tax Act, and retain the money. No problem. This is very. Next line is more important. As far as Gujarat is concerned, suppose in the example, property pass and delivery in Gujarat, there will be a local sale in Gujarat, but it's also an interstate sale from Maharashtra. Since it's interstate sale, Gujarat cannot levy tax under the local act, and Gujarat cannot levy tax under the CST Act because goods are not commenced movement from Gujarat. This is very important. CST can be levied only by the state which movement commences. In the example we took, property pass and delivery in Gujarat, okay? Gujarat can say it's a local sale. I will say it's a local sale, sir. Then Gujarat will say, please pay me tax. I say it's interstate sale. Then Gujarat will say, at least pay CST, same by sir. Then I will say, sir, CST is not payable to you. CST is payable to the dispatching state. That's how it happens in practice. Therefore, dispatching state, if the assessment of the local act, that assessment is invalid because interstate sale. But if the same thing under the CST Act, under the same this thing, the money will go to the same government. As far as dispatching state, recipient tax state is concerned, it is barred from taxing it under the local act of Gujarat because interstate sale from Maharashtra to Gujarat. And Gujarat officer cannot levy interstate sale tax also from me because interstate can be payable under 9 months only to the dispatching state. This is how the Constitution and Parliament achieved the object that one single sale, one single tax is payable. And that is local sale in the dispatching state or interstate sale in the dispatching state with no tax in the recipient state. That's the scheme. Therefore, we will say place where property passes is not relevant in 3 and 5. For example, if the goods are imported from London to Bombay and the property pass in Bombay, Maharashtra can say it's a local sale in Bombay. I tell you, yes, there is a local sale in Bombay. Then Maharashtra will say, please pay your tax. I say, hold on, sir. It's also sale in the course of import. It's sale in the course of import. Nobody can tax it. Because Constitution bars it, Section 5(2) bars it. So that's all. A sale is taking place in Maharashtra. You will be liable to tax under MVA tax, provided it is not interstate sale. Provided it is not import or export. If it is interstate sale, you may have to pay tax under CST Act to dispatching state, with no tax in the recipient state. The same thing is translated in GST also. No difference. We all know CGST Act is there, SGST Act is there, Maharashtra State Goods and Service Tax Act, Gujarat State Goods and Service Tax Act, Goa State Gujarat is there. All of them will tax an intra-state supply. A supply within the state will be taxed under the CGST Act and MGST Act. If it is interstate, then Parliament alone will tax under the IGST Act, like Central Sales Tax Act. One more thing, unlike sales tax on import and export, nobody was entitled to tax, neither the central nor the state. In GST, on import and export, Parliament levies tax under IGST. That's the difference between CST regime and GST regime. In GST, import and export are also taxed under the IGST Act by the Parliament. What is import and export will be defined by the Parliament. Tax also will be levied by the Parliament. Subsequently, it is distributed to the state by distribution formula. That's Section 17 of the IGST Act. We need not bother about it. That's all, sir. Thank you very much. Anybody has any questions or anybody can correct me, I have no problem. Okay. Sorry for the slides can be distributed, can be kept. I have no problem at all. Definitely. Any queries? Anybody wants to ask? Any of the honorable technical members wants to cross-examine me, expose my ignorance? No problem. Most welcome. I don't mind being exposed. Anything new?
Sir, you also might say explain your topic. Like, there are no debate so far. Whether I'm right or not, you can explain. But instead I could gather that consider
parliamentary form of government. There are some federal features. So, wherever the state government is concerned, power to execute that. I find that this federal feature is very much reflected.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. In fact, I'll give an example. In USA, the problem of center and the state is more acute. States are much more independent. Okay. Up to the center it dominates. In states it is not possible. Pandemic, for example, is a state subject. President Trump, President Biden have no role. Okay. The US Supreme Court came up with innovative interpretation. Where the pandemic spreads to more than one state, 2, 3, 4 states, it ceases to be a state subject and becomes a central subject. Applied river water, so state pandemic is a state subject, river water state subject, no problem. But when more than one state is involved, then state has nothing. He will say, "May I will catch the tail," other fellow will say, "Catch the head," I will say the body. Okay. They said no. More than one state is involved, then it is a federal subject. In fact, our constitution entry 97 says all other matters. वो भी नहीं है, तब भी. So therefore, the true reason is, if everything within the state is a state subject, if it involves one state and another, it becomes central subject. But then, as I said, Parliament has only a passive role in central state tax. They make the law and withdraw from the scene. And they say, I made the law for your benefit. That's perfect. Which particular state? Dispatching state. And no other state. This line I have not mentioned, sir. I wanted to mention in this. CST achieves the objective of permitting one state to tax and no other state to tax. That's most important. One state and no other state. Tomorrow or next day, sir, when section 3, 4 and 5 are explained in detail, there are lots of issues on that. What is interstate sale? What is import? Particularly important high sea sales. Okay, all that will be discussed. And Namaskar. Thank you very much, and thanks to you all for giving me a chance to whatever. Sahil has all these slides are prepared by Sahil. Okay, I am only a guest speaker. Okay, thank you. Namaskar. I hope it is not too technical or too involved. First reading that is a complication. I must admit, what I am telling you must be after 50 years of experience. I read it in 1985, 1990. How it looks as if I am quite knowledgeable. Look at what my position was. Far better than what. The evening. I hope tomorrow will call me. Having bored you today, there's enough of me there.
Before the starting of the session, I had one fear in my mind. But I would present the Supreme Court and I expected a with a lot of difficult words. So I have to find a